going to work, how time of the day deduction rule is going to work. So what you'll have to understand here is, when using time of the day as the trigger for deduction, uh, irrespective of when you work, the meal deduction is going to occur at the same time. So no matter if you come at 7 a.m. or 11 p.m. or whatever time, if I tell the system to deduct time from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., it is going to deduct at that time. So consider these scenarios. My shift is at 7 a.m. I'm leaving out at 4 p.m. I have another shift at 11 a.m. and leaving out at 8 p.m. So in both these cases, the system is going to, deduct time from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Because that is what I'm going to specify. So there's another shift in my company where I'm coming at 2 p.m. and going at 11 p.m. In this case, I cannot apply this 12 p.m. thing, right? So I'll have to create a different deduction rule for evening. Okay, so when you're doing time of the day deduction rule, you have to make sure that you specify the time of the day and you specify the amount of time that you want to deduct. So in the system, I will just I might not set up something because I want to give you a task to set this up. So I'll come here and I'll be selecting time of the day. So you see that all the options are now gone. So what I have to specify is, I have to specify at what time of the day the trigger has to apply. So I will be saying some 12 p.m. or something like that, but let's do some activities and then we will come and do this setup. So I will give you some scenarios. You have to tell me based on my conditions what is the amount that will be deducted, what time it is going to be deducted. I have to deduct minus 30 minutes if my conditions are meeting. You have to tell me the time of day and cancel if meal taken is there. So this is same 30 minutes and 1 hour 30 minutes is maximum. Okay, so um, okay, so what is the shift total if an employee is punching at 7 a.m. and he is leaving at 4 p.m.? Or what do you think is the time deducted from this person's shift? This thing time of the day is 12 p.m. Yeah. Okay.
8 hours,
Tell me,
30
go ahead and
minutes.
try. What is shift
8
total?
hours, 30 minutes.
Yeah, perfect. Only one of you is answering. I don't know who is answering, but you're both okay with this, right? Like, if you have any doubts, please stop me and ask me. I'll ready to clear. But I'm just assuming that you both are agreeing and you both are giving an
Yes,
answer,
yes.
just to not overlap your answers, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So shift total is 8 hours 30 minutes. So what time of the day is the deduction going to occur? 30 minutes is the deduction.
To 12
What
p.m. to
into
12:30.
super 12 to 12:30. So now you understand time of the day, right? How time of the day is working. In length of the day, what is happening? We will be saying from 7 a.m. See if for 4 hours if there is no out punch at all, then locate 3 hours from the start of the shift and you deduct 30 minutes from there. But in time of the day option, what we are saying is at this particular time minus this amount for sure. Okay, we'll do one more example. So I have a shift. I'm coming at 7 a.m., but I'm logging out at 7:15. So what do you think will happen in the same conditions? Tell me the shift total and tell me what time it's going to.
Sleep total is 5 hours,
Super.
5 hours 15 minutes.
No.
Yeah, 5 hours 15 minutes. But there is a deduction, right? So what amount is going to be deducted? The shift total is the final amount, final time. You have to minus the deduction from the total and you have to tell me the shift total.
My shift hour is 5 hours because
Yeah.
I
So
deduct
15 minutes
15
is
minutes because of
deducted.
the.
Yeah. So what is happening? So it is going to locate it at 12 p.m. It will see for 30 minutes. There is no 30 minutes. So it will take whatever time is there and it will make the last as its output. So here 15 minutes is gone. So he'll only have 5 hours in his shift and 12 p.m. to 12:15 p.m. is this time that will be deducted from his time card. Okay, one more we'll do. 7 a.m. I'm coming. I'm going at 12:30 p.m. What is the shift total and what is the when is the time going to be deducted?
Shift total is 5 hours and the time deducted is 30 minutes.
Yeah, from 12 p.m. to 12:30, right?
12:30. Yes.
Okay, so this is how time of the day is going to work. Um, so I'll not save this. I'll give you the task. You will save this. I will give you instructions on how to name it and what you will be setting up. And I'll also tell you for which employee you're going to test this. So I'll just show you how this system is going to work. Okay. So if I select a pay code to trigger, I'm just going to tell it which pay code should be there on the system to, say, for example, I don't have a lunch or a break related pay code, say compensation hours. So if I have this pay code triggered on the time card, it is going to, deduct uh, this amount from the person's uh, total shift, just like how time of the day, length of the shift did. But we generally don't use this pay code rule, but you just know what this option does, but we'll not be using this. So pay code is based on a particular pay code. So when this system is going to see the pay code option on the time card, it is going to deduct whatever amount you tell the system to deduct it. So you have to tell the minimum hours you should have worked, like based on a shift, or does it have to see the whole week period or the pay period, like a week or for 2 weeks. So based on the pay code and the conditions is going to trigger the deduction rules. Okay, but the most important thing is time of the day and length of the shift. I'll be giving you exercises for both of these. You'll be creating the policies for that. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. So the next few work rules like call-ins, schedule deviation, factor time, rest between shifts, all these four are not, very familiar ones. So I'm just gonna touch base on all these. So you will know what is happening or what it does. So what call-in generally is, what this rule is, this rule specifies how your employees are compensated when they are on call, or like when they go out, when they finish their work and go, but they are called back again to work, or when they do both, like when they are on call and they are called back to work. So so here we have to specify um, call-in hours as scheduled callback? Like, have you already scheduled this? Like, do you know if you're going to call him back? Or like, if you're just calling back, like, you have an urgency and you're going to call him. So what this rule specifies is, you're basically telling the system how your employees are compensated when something out of the shift is happening. So we have 3 tabs over here. So we'll see what each one does. So on-call pay, this one we specify the, so here we are going to specify a rule that is going to define the system, how it is going to interpret time. So employees are assigned to a callback shift, but they do not earn on-call hours until they actually report to work. So they have to work some time. Only then they'll be able to, they'll be able to eligible for a for the shift premium. So you will specify what the maximum on-call time is, like how much time they can be in the system, like say 12 hours, and you're going to tell a locator, like starting from the shift, 2 hours into the shift, see if this person is still here. So if you mention two hours over here, it's going to locate 2 hours, and then he's going to qualify for a shift. Scheduled callback. So what scheduled callback does is, we configure the requirements used to link hours actually work to in place of a callback shift. So generally these are useful when on-call shifts are scheduled directly before and after regular shifts. Like you know that you're going to work, so you know that your employee is going to work some other shift after their regular shift. So they're working 8 hours in the morning, they're coming at 8, leaving at 4, but they still have to work an extra shift. Say from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. they're going to work another shift. So if you know before itself that they have a shift either before or after their original shift, then you will use scheduled callback. So in minimum callback near regular, in this option, the amount of time that employees are required to work before they can start accruing callback hours. So you have to specify some minimum amount of time before, only if they work that minimum hours, like core hours, if they only work those minimum hours, you're going to pay them this. Otherwise, you are not going to. Early schedule margin is the earliest time that the employees can punch in early for a callback shift and start accruing. So, so if you're going to tell them that you have to come and work from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., but they come in at 5:30, you're going to tell them what margin they can use. Like, can they start early or should they start specifically on the time? So if you want them to start specifically at that time, you'll make it as 0. But if you think it's okay if they come even an hour before and work, you'll just make it as 1. So that is early schedule margin. So the last option is callback. So what we do on this tab is we configure how hours are accrued when employees report to work during a callback shift. So when you already have a callback shift, an employee is going to report to it. So you mentioned a shift guarantee, like if you think a shift guarantee is needed, so so if this is applied, and when employees are called back, it assigns the guaranteed shift to the callback work rule instead of their in-place work rule. Like instead of the in-shift thing, like instead of working their shift, they're going to work a called back shift. So you're going to say if the shift guarantee is going to apply to the first short callback or once. I'm sorry. So to first short callback is when the you're going to use this to apply the guarantee only to the first time that the employees report to work for less than the guaranteed shift time. So say that you have 2 hours of guaranteed shift time, and if the employee is going to work for less than that, then you're going to select this. But if you think they can work, if you think they're going to be working more than the guaranteed amount of time, you're going to compare all the total that employee is going to report to work during this callback shift. So if the total is less than the guaranteed amount, the guarantee applies to the last callback shift. So there are other options. So transfer from callback at regular schedule. So you will select this if your employees are scheduled for regular shifts next to their callback shifts. employees work during the callback shift and the regular shift, like they can do both. Or if your employees are going to stop collecting some callback hours and they want to start collecting only regular hours when the regular shift starts. So the second is pay both callback and regular. Like so you select this when a manual transfer is required, to stop accruing both regular and callback hours during the regular shift. And the last option is transfer to callback at regular schedule end. So you select this when employees are scheduled for the same option, like they transfer from callback. So this is from, this is to. So this is done at the start of the shift and this is done at the end of the shift. So that is it with Collins. Honestly, I haven't used this in setup. So this is just a basic knowledge of this. If you want, at the end of pay policies and at the end of timekeeping, we can set up something and we can see how this works. But I don't have any exercises for Collins or schedule deviations. Any questions, or shall I move to the next one?
Okay,
So
ma'am.
in order for, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so in order for a work rule to work perfectly, or like, if you say the core components, they are the rounding rules, shift guarantees, exceptions, breaks, bonuses and deductions, overtimes, zones, combination rules, and PCD. So these you have to definitely set up. Only then, you'll make a meaningful work rule and you can make a meaningful pay rule out of it. Okay, so let's see what schedule deviations are. So schedule deviations are, special differentials that employees earn when they work before or after their scheduled times or for shifts that are unscheduled. So this is also something similar to call-ins, but you can ask your employees to work an unscheduled shift in this case. So we have to define a rule for each situation. If it is unscheduled, you have to create a situation. If it's scheduled, you have to create a situation. So we use schedule deviations to reward employees who work when they're not scheduled or when they come in early or leave late. So you can create many types of schedule deviation hours, but only one can be assigned to the work rule. So schedule deviation rules are one of the most important elements. So not important, are one of the elements in the pay code distributions. So we'll see what all options are here. So when you see, it says before shift, after shift. So it says before shift, after shift, not scheduled, and it requires approval. So what before shift means is this time worked within the early schedule margin and before the start of a shift accumulates as schedule deviation time. 1 minute, sorry. Yeah. So what after shift means is, so this is the time that is worked after the scheduled end of a shift and before the missed out limit accumulates as a scheduled deviation time. Not scheduled is when an employee, when there is no in punch that's linked to a schedule, the time accumulates as a schedule, but it's also, uh, but it's also a scheduled deviation time. And what requires approval means is it's going to require approval from manager for hours that an employee is going to work outside of the scheduled shift. So just for our example, I'm just going to select all this. I will not be assigning this to a work rule, but this is what schedule deviation does. It's so this is going to interpret special differentials that an employee is going to earn when they work before their shift or after their shift or a not scheduled shift. So say like if he's going to work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. for some work he's coming early at 6 a.m. So that 1 hour, do you want to pay him? If he's leaving late, that 1 hour, do you want to pay him? So that is this setup, because we have some rounding rules that don't do this, right? And we might have also set up some exceptions saying that if they start early before the scheduled start time, then you have to flag it as an exception. But when you assign a schedule deviation to it, that is exception is going to be overridden. So you can create different schedule deviations for different employees.
Ma'am, what is the minimum time for this?
Sorry?
What is the
No, there is
minimum time?
no. You cannot specify minimum time, so you will only be assigning this to the work rule.
Okay. If I have applied rounding rule, then the maybe
No,
that
in
time.
that case in that case this will get overridden. If you have a deviation selected, your rounding rule will still apply. Only your exception will not apply.
Okay.
And this is mostly used in processing orders. We'll be seeing it in the later stages when you create payroll. So this is mostly associated to the payroll building block. So once we come here, you'll be able to relate to schedule deviations. So you will see the schedule deviations. So you will see which order you are going to select it. Like which order it's going to process first. Like should it check for schedule deviation first and then look for exception, or what should be done first? Okay. Okay. So let's see factor time. So factor time building block provides the ability to specify a start time, end time, and a multiplier for the duration in which the system will factor for the time. One second. Okay, so for example, if you work a night shift or a night zone, consider this scenario. So the factor time, what it helps to do is it is going to apply a multiplier to the time worked within that specified zone. So if you're starting at say your work starts at 11 p.m. You're working a night shift. Your work starts at 11 p.m. and you're finishing at 7 a.m. So there is some time that falls in the night zone, right? From 12 midnight to 7 a.m. That falls under the night zone. So if you want to pay that particular time, in with the multiplication of, like, say your base rate is 20 rupees, but for that period alone, if you want to pay some different amount, then in that case you create a factor time. So this is one example. Like for night shifts, you can use this. I'll probably create one, but we will see. Okay, I'll just say at 11 p.m. I want this to start, uh, and it ends at 5 a.m. So I think this is a default value, but I'll just put it as um, okay. So I think you have to. Okay, so in the factor time, I don't think it will allow you to add number greater than 1. So it can either be 0.5, or there is a default value that comes with this. I think it is 0.142 or something. I don't know why it won't allow, but the condition here is you can pay it like only values between 0 to 1 you can enter in this factored area. But I think we can check. Uh, okay, so you can associate this factor time with an overtime rule. So you can calculate overtime. Say like if there is 6 hours of overtime, you can associate it an overtime with your factored rule, and then you can adjust your combination rules to to pay your employee accordingly. Okay, I'll get back to you on this. I'm not very sure how this works, but I only have very limited knowledge on this. But I will get back to you on this again. So we'll see rest between shifts. So we use a rest between shift rules to specify premium pay for the time worked during an expected rest period. So there are some companies or countries where there is, a government rule that there has to be a requirement that can include specific periods of rest between work shifts. So you can do a compensation payment if required, if the rest period does not occur, or you can allow you can allow some rest to be taken for those shifts. So generally rest is nothing but some non-worked time between two shifts. So the time between these two shifts can be non-working or non-productive time at work, or on-call or callback status, or even unscheduled shifts. So this allows us to specify the amount of rest and the premium paid for missed rest periods. So there are some situations you can think of. So consider an employee is denied a rest period. So the first hours of the shift that violate the rest period are paid at some premium rate. So the premium is going to continue until the total rest time and the worked time equals the rest amount. So that is the first specification or the situation. So a second situation you can consider is a violation. So in situations of my violations, like you have to meet a specified minimum. In those cases, the hours of the shift that violate the rest period are paid as premium until the amount of time reaches a configured minimum premium duration. Or your third situation can be a full shift follows an insufficient rest period. The full shift following a period of insufficient rest is paid as a premium. So meals and transfers to non-premium work rules are specified here. So you can either do a maximum premium amount or a minimum shift length can be applied. So we'll just see what the setup looks like. We won't be using this, but I'm just giving an overview of the setup. So required rest. So here you are going to specify the amount of rest time, that is dictated by the law, or like whatever contract you have between shifts. So some places there will be manual work where rest is mandatory. So in those cases, you're going to say the amount of time the rest is required. And say 2 hours. Unscheduled shift counts as. Here we're going to specify whether unscheduled shifts count as work or rest. Unscheduled shifts that are specified as rest are included in the premium pay calculations. If you don't, then it's not going to. So how do you want the premium to apply to? Should the premium this only if you select amount of denied rest, then this applies only to the missed reduced time. So you're missing your rest time, so you want the premium to be applied to the time that an employee has not taken a rest because he was at some other work, or do you want it to apply for your entire shift? So next is minimum rest premium. So this is the guaranteed minimum amount of rest premium that an employee can receive. So consider the required rest is 12 hours, and the minimum rest premium is 2 hours. So there should be a gap of 12 hours between two shifts. If not, and the other condition is the minimum rest premium is 2 hours. So if the employee has only 11 and a half hours of rest, there is half hour rest premium. So if there is a minimum of 2 hours of rest configured, the employee receives two rather than the half. In case of maximum, consider the same 12-hour shift employee's rest time is 12 hours, and but employee receives only 2 hours of rest, which means the rest premium should be 10 hours. So if maximum rest premium is 8, then employee receives 8 and not 10. Minimum shift length. So this is required for a rest premium even if employee did not take enough rest. So consider the minimum shift length is 8 hours and the required rest is 12. So the current shift length is 6 hours and the employee has only 10 hours of rest. So the employee does not receive a 2-hour rest premium because the total shift length is less than 8 hours. So the next option is continuous rest interval. So you choose yes if the rest period must be continuous. Like, should it be continuous, or do you want the employee to work 2 shifts and take a rest, or like 3 days in a row and take a rest? So you select yes if the period must be continuous. And we have a rest interval window. So what this means is the amount of time that the system looks back to check for a qualified rest period. So it must either be equal to or greater than the required rest. This value is usually the same amount of time as required rest. So next, how do you want to compute your rest length? So you specify the type of punch to be used for shift start and the shift ends when you're computing the rest periods. So either say rounded punch, or use your actual punches, or use your scheduled punches. Okay, that's it with apply premium to amount of denied rest. Even a shift start and shift end. I'll do rounded punch. Okay, I know this is very confusing, but we can test this out at the end once you're thorough with your work rule. Once you create a work rule, we can go back and we can test this. But if you have any questions, let me know. I have to try some scenarios so I can share more examples with you. But I don't have any. I didn't create any this week. I was busy, so I couldn't work. I just thought I'll do the basic work rules and then we will go back to all these things. But from interview point of view, they'll generally not ask definitions and all, but for the other things that we did, like they'll definitely ask questions from rounding rules and how exceptions are set up, how bonuses and deductions are done, so all those sort of things. Okay, shall I go to the next one, overtimes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So we will, look at how overtimes work. We'll see how daily, weekly, and bi-weekly overtimes are done, and what other different types of overtime resets are there in the system. So, common scenarios. So what overtime is? Overtime is used to pay an employee some additional money when they work more than a certain number of hours. So generally in the US, somebody who's working at hourly rate in the sense like they'll be working like for fixed rate. So we have monthly salaries. So it's fixed for us. So the number of hours we work in a month does not matter. Whatever you work, you're going to get your monthly fixed salary, right? So for hourly employees, if they work more than 8 hours a day or like more than 10 hours a day, that extra money is going to be costing the company, right? Even if you work 1 hour extra, you're going to pay 20 rupees extra for that day. So how we are going to interpret this overtime? So generally in US, when hourly employee is paid overtime after they have worked more than 40 hours in a week, they pay 1.5 times the employee's base rate. So if 20 is your base, you'll get 1.5 times more of it. Okay, so there are some common thresholds, like you have 8-hour shifts, you have 12-hour shifts. So in those scenarios, we are going to see how overtime is going to be paid when you work over 8 or over 12 in a day, or over 40 in a week, or over 80 in 2 weeks. So first we'll see how daily is going to work. So there are two common types of shifts, 8 hours or 12 hours in a day. So these daily overtimes do not help employee reach weekly threshold. Like if you work daily, it's not going to help your employee reach your daily, their weekly threshold. Like there'll be a threshold, like there'll be a maximum number for the week, right? So when they accrue it for daily, it's not going to touch their weekly things. So let's consider a week. Saturday. Okay, so on Sunday, my shift, I've only worked 0 hours. On Monday, I worked 10. On Tuesday, I worked 7. On Wednesday, I worked 9. Thursday, 7. Friday, 8. And Saturday, 0. So, it's 8 hours. Okay, my daily limit is 8. So, what is my overtime on Monday? 2. On Wednesday, it is 1. And that's it. So, rest all, it is going to be 0. Okay, so what is the total time that I've worked? What is the OT hours? Okay. So total is 41 hours. I've worked for 41 hours. So in that 3 hours is OT, right? 3 hours is OT time. So what is my non-OT time? It's 41 minus 3, it is 38. So I've worked 41 hours this week, in which 3 hours is my overtime. So my non-overtime is 38. So 38 will be paid at 20 rupees per hour. This 3 will be paid at 20 into 1.5 times per hour. Okay, so in overtime rules, we need to tell the system how many hours the employee must work before he can earn an overtime. So this you will have to, sit with your customer and you have to gather the requirements. They'll tell you if they work so and so, if they work 8 hours, you have to pay them extra. So on Monday and Wednesday, this person is going to get some extra money. So let's see what types of overtime rules are there. So in this, it's based on the reset. So I will be showing you how new day, new shift, and two others, but I'll give you an explanation of how it works. So you will be setting up this later and you will share uh, your inputs with me. So what happens in new day? So when you do a new day or a new shift reset, it's going to be similar. New day or new shift, both are similar. Okay, we'll see with an example how this works. So what happens in a new day or new shift? So you have your Sunday to Saturday, and your shift timing is 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. So this is your shift timing. So how are you telling the system what a new day is? How will the system know if it is a new day? So how do we define a day? We say a day is something from midnight to midnight, right? From 12 a.m. to the next 12 a.m. So when you select the new day option, it is going to interpret based on the day. So it's going to see on Sunday he has worked 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m., which means on Saturday 11 p.m. he has started the shift and he's ending the shift at 7:30 a.m. on a Sunday. So what is your new day here? It's going to be Sunday. So when you try to reset a new day or new shift, so consider an employee who is working 11 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. with half an hour break. and a new day begins at midnight. So, okay, 1 second. Okay, so what will happen on Saturday? He'll have 1 hour, and on Sunday he'll have 7 hours, right? After his break. So Sunday is going to be 1 hour. So in my now we are going to see a new day, and it's the work time is 8 hours. So what happens on Sunday? He'll have 1 hour. On Monday he'll be having 8 hours. Um, okay. Uh, um, are you able to grasp this, or is it
Yes.
confusing?
Yes.
Okay, because okay, I think we'll stop here.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. Okay, then see you tomorrow. Good night.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.